Partnered with the Salt Lake City Public Library that put a bookstore in one of these spaces. Partnered with Little City, which is an organization that I actually run with a partner to bring in these shipping container buildings so that we could have events and have commercial spaces on site. Partnered with the Food Truck League to bring in food trucks. We partnered with different artists to bring in public art that could give it that kind of richness of and interest that we want in a public space. And so, there were a lot of different, creative people involved in this, and I think it gives it, it's a wide variety of interest, of things to do here.
We have a website. It's called Salt Lake City or slcgreenloop.com, all one word. And on there you'll see background on the Green Loop, the big idea, information on the installation, the pop-up installation. It also has all of the events coming up, the music on Wednesday evenings, Saturday evenings. We have a survey open right now, so please tell us what you think. What do you like? What do you think we should include in the future design? And there's a place to sign up to get emails about and be informed of progress on the design project as we move forward.
I always thought I liked books. Do you guys remember Old Yeller? I do. Old Yeller dies at the end, guys. I've had trust issues ever since. But in the meantime, let's take a look at Salt Lake City's oldest bookstore, Dwyer's Books.
thank you for joining us this evening. We're happy that you're here, whether in person or on Zoom or watching one of our live feeds. Now we are beginning our formal meeting, and tonight we have actually officially 3 meetings. The council wears several hats, and tonight we will be meeting as both the City Council as well as the Local Building Authority and the Redevelopment Agency Board. So thank you for joining us for all of those. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me in that.
Not just the rich.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Before we move through the agenda, I do want to remind everyone of our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure our meetings move along well, and as also to help everyone feel comfortable in sharing their comments. A copy of the full rules of decorum are available at the door, and the staff will post the link in Zoom. Our business items tonight include holding the second public hearings regarding the proposed budgets for fiscal year 2023 through 24 for each of the 3 entities that we represent. As some of you may have noticed, we have switched our platform from WebEx to Zoom. If you would like to comment on a public hearing today, we are accepting comments both here in person as well as on Zoom. Itzhak Canedo from our staff will moderate the Zoom and will message you with any questions about your registration. They're handling many tasks in the background, so please limit messages to staff to technical issues and minimal information updates. But if you do need to speak with our staff, please select Itzhak, spelled I-S-A-A-C, Canedo, from the list of participants. And if you need to, you can also raise your hand in the Zoom to indicate that you need something from the host. Taylor Hill, who is also a staff member, will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order in which we receive the names. If you are on Zoom, please unmute your mic when Taylor calls your name. Let's see. Okay, so the first item, we are now convened as the Local Building Authority. And the first item is a public hearing for the budget for capital projects for the Local Building Authority for fiscal year 2023 through 2024. Before taking comments, we'll turn the time over to Jennifer Bruno to give us a short introduction. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first hearing will address the fiscal year 24 budget for the Local Building Authority. The LBA is the city's financing mechanism to build facilities such as the Glendale and Marmalade Library, and this is the budget tool to pay off those bonds each year. While the title references capital projects, this does not include any of the capital projects reviewed and recommended by the mayor in the general fund capital improvement projects budget. That hearing will be later on this evening.
Right. I believe we have hearing devices if anyone needs additional hearing amplification.
Echo or bad acoustics or something.
Well, apologize, but there are devices if you need some help. So with that introduction, we will move to our first public comment. Taylor, will you please begin with the first commenter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no one registered to speak to this item.
All right, is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to the Local Building Authority? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date up for action.
Second. Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Pui. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I'm an aye as well. That passes 5-0 with 2 council members absent. All right, this concludes our Local Building Authority meeting. I'll look for a motion to adjourn as the Local Building Authority and convene as the Redevelopment Agency Board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Petro, second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this item? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously 5-0. Okay, we are now convened as the Redevelopment Agency Board. And we have one item on our RDA board agenda, which is the second public hearing for the budget for the redevelopment agency of the Salt Lake City for fiscal year 2023 through 24. Jennifer Bruner will give us an introduction to this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next hearing pertains to the fiscal year 24 budget of the redevelopment agency as proposed by the mayor. If there are comments about the proposed city or library budgets, those comments should be presented to the council in the item later tonight. This budget was discussed in a work session earlier in May, and recordings and a staff report can be found on the council's budget website at tinyurl.com/SLC-FY24. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Taylor, please start with our first comment.
Mr. Chair, we do not have anyone registered for this item.
All right, thank
Chair.
you. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to the RDA budget? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board close the public hearing and refer the item to a future future date for action.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. And this concludes our redevelopment agency meeting. I'll look for a motion to adjourn as the RDA board and convene as the Salt Lake City Council.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Pui. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. We are now convened as the body of the Salt Lake City Council. Our first item of council business is approval of the formal meeting minutes from April 4th, 2023. And I want to just note that the minutes for this meeting have been updated with a notation to reflect the council's action on the May 23rd, 2023 consent agenda, which corrected the approval of petition number PLNPCM 2002-00475 regarding accessory dwelling units. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council approve the formal meeting minutes of April 4th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, a motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Petro. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That passes 5-0. This brings us to section G of our agenda tonight, which is City Council public hearings. So if you would like to comment on tonight's public hearing items, we are accepting comments. I'll read through this again, in person or online via Zoom. If you need to speak with staff, please select Itzhak Canedo from the list of participants or raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. Taylor Hill, who is also a staff member, will be calling those who wish to comment based on the order we received your names or comment cards. If you are on Zoom, please unmute when Taylor calls your name. So this brings us to item G1. G1 is a public hearing regarding a resolution for the Cannon Greens Community Garden at 1300 South and 800 West, public benefit analysis and authorizing the lease rates and terms. Allison Rowland will be giving us an introduction to this item. Allison is on Zoom. Hi, Allison.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chair. The Public Lands Department is proposing authorization of a below-market lease of 8 city-owned parcels to the International Rescue Committee, also known as IRC, and Wasatch Community Gardens. These 2.41 acres are located east of the Sorensen Multicultural Center on 1300 South and 800 West. The IRC and Wasatch Community Gardens would enter a joint lease at $1 per year for 5 years, with the option to renew for 4 more 5-year terms.
Thank you, Allison. Taylor, please start with our first public comment on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no one registered for this item.
Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to this item? I see one. If you have a comment or an item, we don't really answer questions in this meeting, but you're free to submit the question and we can have someone get back to you. But I did see somebody interested in speaking. Yes, come to that. Hello. Please state your name for the record.
Georgina Griffith Yates, Executive Director of Wasatch Community Gardens. Just wanted to take the opportunity to speak a little bit to the programming that will go on there. We'll be able to have programming that provides jobs for women facing homelessness. right now we have a lease that is ending through the RDA. We've been so grateful to work with the RDA for the last 8 years on this lease. And this is a new opportunity to work with International Rescue Committee to join forces farming and growing food for our community. This last year we were able to grow enough food to be dispersed to 42% of those who were in shelters in Utah this last year. And so we're excited for the opportunity to continue that work. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments to this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a later date.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dugan, a second from Councilmember Pooh. Any discussion to this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. All right, that brings us to item number G2. G2 is an ordinance for the new 5-year housing plan, Housing SLC. Before taking comments, we will again look to Allison Rowland, who is joining us by Zoom, to give us a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before the council is an ordinance that would adopt the proposed new 5-year housing plan called Housing Salt Lake City. The city's current housing plan, Growing Salt Lake City, expires at the end of this fiscal year, and a new moderate income housing plan is needed to meet state code requirements and receive priority consideration for state funding resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Taylor, please begin with our first comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 3 people registered for this item. The first will be Lance Spencer, followed by Christina Kanasiva, and then Christina Robb. Lance, you may now unmute.
Hello, my name is Lance Spencer, and I am here today representing the Salt Lake City chapter of the Center for New Liberalism. We are a center-left organization focused on pragmatic policy and effective governance. At the local, you hear me? Sorry. I'm getting feedback. At the local and state level, the cost of housing is the largest economic issue, and thus achieving housing abundance is our primary focus as a chapter. We agree with the City Council that we face a housing crisis, and we appreciate that Housing SLC sets goals to increase the housing supply and support the most disadvantaged. We support recent City Council efforts to ease burdens on increasing the housing supply, and we hope to see many more. However, we feel there is a discrepancy between using the word crisis and the measures proposed to address it. We worry Housing SLC is fundamentally a conservative plan. It does not seek to systematically change the status quo, restrain supply that advantages those who already own property. Achieving housing abundance requires significant reforms to zoning and permitting to foster density and efficiency at scale. Furthermore, the plan appears to be based on a misunderstanding of the root causes that led to this crisis. High housing costs are not because of market failure. They're because this city, among many others, deliberately decided to regulate and strangulate development and density. These increased costs from the imbalance between supply and demand are passed on to renters and buyers. The gains to the home equity of some, including myself, are more than offset by the present and especially the future drag on growth and prosperity. We urge the council to consider strong measures to actually address the underlying cause of our crisis, namely the public policy set by the City Council. A famous political speech once stated, "You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold." Today, such a speech would perhaps say, "You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of single-family zoning, minimum lot sizes, and red tape." We chose to create this crisis, and we implore you now to choose to end it through bold action. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Taylor?
Next is Christina Kanasiva, followed by Christina Robb. Christina, you may now unmute.
Hi, thank you so much for all your hard work improving affordable housing in the city. I really do appreciate it. My name is Cassinia. I'm with the Nomad Alliance. I just want to say that, you know, we have been speaking to other entities. We just spoke at the county council today. We brought 3 folks that are chronically unsheltered to say the same thing that, you know, we've been begging of you guys. Please, I laud you and I applaud you for improving affordable housing, but we need deeply affordable, deeply, extremely low barrier housing. And again, please consider sanctioned campgrounds. Please consider the Santa Cruz coding changes that would allow a small number of people to live in vehicles and motorhomes in business lots, church lots, one in a driveway and a tent in a backyard. Please consider minimizing the size requirements for ADUs and whether it's hooked up to sewer. Consider, composting toilets, other ways where people can live in deeply affordable housing, still have a roof over their head, and be able to gain the stability to improve their livelihoods, their life, and move on from a smaller unit into something larger. But people have to start out somewhere, and we don't need just 30% of someone's large salary. We need something that is free or deeply close to free for people to go. And right now, our idea is a sanctioned campground, Santa Cruz coding changes, smaller ADUs, allowing micro home communities and backyards, things like that. And appreciate you guys, and thank you very much.
And next, Christina, here in person.
Thank you. Hi, Christina.
Good evening. My name is Christina Robb, and I'm the chair of East Liberty Park Community Organization. I'm here tonight to talk about the housing plan and to thank the planners for all the additional work they did with us to help understand the plan in more detail so we could break it down to a little bit more digestible levels for some of our constituents to better absorb. People who are not so familiar with planning or interested or have not been previously interested in this process. And again, we support the plan and are excited to see what's next in affordable housing here in Salt Lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was the final registered comment.
All right, anyone else here in person that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a later date.
Second.
Great. I have a motion from Councilmember Puya, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes unanimously 5-0. We are now on to item G3, which is an ordinance regarding Salt Lake School District signage. Let's see. Brian Fulmer from council staff will give us an introduction, and then we'll begin public comments. Hi, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposed text amendment initiated by the Salt Lake School District to allow pole signs on school properties. It would apply to both public and private K through 12 schools citywide. Some zoning districts on which schools are located do not permit the signs. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It does not look like we have anyone registered for this item.
All right. Is there anyone here in person that would like to speak to item G3? All right. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Dugan, second from Councilmember Puy. Any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, that brings us to item G4. G4 is a resolution about the issuance of Airport Revenue Bond Series 2023 for financing the construction of the new Salt Lake City Airport. Sam Owen from council staff will be giving us an introduction to this item. Sam is online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The airport proposes to issue up to $600 million in general airport revenue bonds. The total issuance amount is likely to be close to $450 million. The funds would be used to continue the airport's massive multi-year rebuild and new construction. The council has adopted the bond parameters resolution, which initiates this public comment period, a larger public comment period that includes this public hearing. The bonds are backed by airport revenue. No tax dollars are used to pay airport debt or for its capital improvements. Instead, long-term airline leases and other commercial fees help secure revenue to support issuing these bonds. Please also note that the motion sheet language is a little bit different. The the public hearing should be continued if possible for another week after today as a result of a noticing error. But again, refer to the motion sheet for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Taylor, please start with our first public comment on this item.
Mr. Chair, there is no one registered to speak to this item.
All right, is there anyone here in person that wants to speak to this item? Yes, please come to the microphone and share your name for the record and begin your 2-minute comment. This one right over here, sir.
I just wanted to say that...
Please state your name for the record, sorry.
Jay Larson.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that last speaker, I believe his name is Sam, he sounded quite monotone. Invite him to inflect his voice a little bit if he wants to sell whatever it is he's selling. Thanks, bye.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move that the council continue the public hearing to June 13, 2023. The hearing needs to be continued due to a noticing error.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. And that brings us to items G5 through G12. These are all grant applications and they will be heard as one public hearing. And before we start taking public comments, Sylvia Richards from council staff will give an introduction to these items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The City Council periodically applies for and receives grants which fund some city programs. Each grant receives a public hearing which gives the public an opportunity to learn about the grants, and tonight there are 8 grant applications. First is the Community Project Funding Fiscal Year 23 for the 200 South Transit Corridor Phase 3 Transit Lane Compliance and Capacity Optimization Grant, which would provide federal funding to add transit signal priority and high visibility signage and pavement markings to accommodate 12 UTA bus routes for existing local routes and new regional routes serving South Davis County and the city's west side. Second is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Capacity Building Grant for the Fair Park Youth City programs. This would include salaries and benefits for 2 existing positions and 3 new part-time hourly positions to expand capacity for youth participants in the Fair Park, Poplar Grove, and Rose Park areas over a 3-year period. The third grant is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Capacity Building Grant to support the Fair Park Learning Center, which includes a shared library, free tax prep classes, as well as budgeting, credit building, and debt reduction workshops. Funding would provide salary and benefits for 2 full-time positions and 3 new part-time hourly instructor positions and 2 part-time hourly computer assistant positions for adult education programming. Fourth is the Victims of Crime Grant, which would continue the Victim Advocate or VOCA position funded in the 21-23 award, and funding for a second Victim Advocate position. Also included is training and office furniture. Fifth is the Recreation Trails Program Grant, which would provide funding to remove dead and obstructing trees, branches, and debris from the Jordan River Water Trail Corridor, as well as boat ramp improvements and rehabilitated natural open space. Sixth is the Violence Against Women Grant, which would provide salary for 1 victim advocate position. This position would provide services and resources to victims of sexual assault, dating violence, stalking, and domestic violence as their cases move through the justice system. Also included is training and office furniture. Seventh is the Paul Coverdell Forensic Science Improvement Grant Program, for which the city is a sub-awardee. The funding would cover the Salt Lake City Police Department Crime Lab annual accreditation fee for 2023. Last is the Clean Energy to Communities Expert Match Grant, which would provide technical support from the National Renewable Energy Lab. This would include providing the Department of Sustainability staff with resources and tools to measure emissions reductions and other benefits associated with renewable energy sources. And again, these are grants and funding for which the city has applied. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, please start with our first public commenter.
Mr. Chair, we have one person registered for this item. That is Christina Robb, who is here in person.
Hi, my name is Christina Robb, and for this section, I'm actually representing the West of East Youth Advocacy Project. We're asking you to support number 10, the Violence Against Women grant. Among the youth population that we work with, we see that this type of violence is the #1 contributor to generational violence and generational poverty among the category of students that we work with. And we would go on to say that it actually contributes to a much larger population than we advocate for, or advocate for themselves to advocate for. So I would just really hope that you would consider throwing as much money as you can towards domestic violence and violence against women and try to stop the repetition from generation to generation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wanting to speak to the grant applications? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items G5 through G12 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, that motion passes 5-0. We are on our last public hearing of the evening, which is agenda items G13 through G24, which are all ordinances associated with the implementation of the mayor's recommended budget for Salt Lake City, including the library fund for fiscal year 2023 through 2024. Before taking public comment, Jennifer Bruno will give us an introduction to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The council considers all ordinances relating to the fiscal year budget in one public hearing, as they are all needed together to implement the mayor's recommended budget for fiscal year 24, including the library. The various ordinances address fees, compensation, setting property tax rates and budgets, among other items. Tonight's public hearing addresses ordinances G13 through G24. For those that may not be aware, departments are discussed in detail at each of the council's public work sessions through May and June. Recording of those discussions are available online on the council's website as are staff analysis of each department. More information can be found at tinyurl.com/SLCFY24. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have about 10 people registered for these items. The first will be Terry Marasco, followed by Jim Webster, and then Abdirzek Ibrahim. Terry is here in person.
Hi, my name is Terry Marasco. I'm speaking as the chair of the Jordan Meadows Community Council. So for many years, this is a general comment, for many years I lived on the east side of Salt Lake City and only recently on the west side. But over the years, I've worked on a whole bunch of issues on the west side. And what I'm hearing from some parts of the city, that the city council, mayor, is putting too much focus on the west side. So either we make this a tale of two cities, that the west side remains historically neglected, or we balance the city by focusing on the west side while we don't neglect the east side. So for those of us that live on the west side, we have enormous problems. I mean, you all know them. Largest open pit mine in the world, 3 interstates, 5 oil refineries, etc. The inland port coming in, and all these issues. So there needs to be a place where we pay attention to the neglect while we also pay attention to the rest of the city. And we certainly appreciate the mayor and the council for doing what they do. And frankly, a lot of people, either through grants, the Utah Inland Port, the EPA is actually putting some money on the west side to solve some of these problems. But anyway, I just want to say that we can't have a tale of two cities here. We need to understand Salt Lake is one place with some damage on one side that needs to be repaired. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next will be Jim Webster, followed by Abdirzak Ibrahim, and then Christopher Butler. Jim is here in person.
My name is Jim Webster. I'm a former chair of Yale Crest. That's on the east side. I'm also the applicant of a CIP grant for Miller Bird Refuge and Nature Park that I wrote almost 8 years ago. I have yet to hear anything back from the Parks Department with respect to any sort of follow-up, even though I had assumed at that point that would have happened. What they have done is spent about, I know Dan correct me, but about a third of the grant, which was $425,000, and now they're proposing 12 remedial projects to be performed, and we had a chance, I guess, to vote on these. The unfortunate thing is that absolutely none of these have anything to do with the CIP grant that I wrote, and to me, it's really unfortunate that we're balancing the Salt Lake City budget on the back of a CIP proposal. The other point that I would like to make is that currently the University of Utah wants to build a stadium on 5.5 acres of land on Guardsman Way, and the council, including the time that the mayor was on the council, voted in support of the East Bench Master Plan, which mandated that the city purchase that property for expansion of Sunnyside Park and for community purposes, and not for the purpose of university that is intended. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next is Abdirzak Ibrahim, followed by Christopher Butler, and then Jay Larson. Abdirzak is here in person.
Yeah, my name is Abdirzak Ibrahim. This is my second time, I'm speaking, in front of you guys as city consultant and mayor. The reason why I came here, on behalf of, my people west side of Salt Lake City. I hear a lot of things here, but somehow, I only hear only one shoulder. That we are missing the other shoulder. If we don't really, if this both shoulder they're not really connecting, always we'll be really missing, because a lot of people living west side of the other side. So there's a lot of things missing on west side of Salt Lake City. So whatever you guys have a funding, let's work on west side of Salt Lake. So I've been here most of my life. I came on I was 18 years old. I'm 45 years right now. So I've been really working as a community leader. So let's work with, let's focus on west side of Salt Lake City. A lot of people live in west side. A lot of business has been really shut down. A lot of people have a business truck. They just park their own car, their own truck. They cannot get load. There's a lot of things happening. We've been involving the community. Even people, they're kicking out their houses, their apartment house. A lot of people moving from California. I don't know how they get the money. They're kicking people without reasons. Some people, they're saying that you have to leave the house. We cannot sign the contract with you. So they're getting more money than other people they're paying. So a lot of things happening really. It's all Utah, I believe, but I see it most of west side of Salt Lake City. So there's a lot of things happening. Let's focus this time west side of Salt Lake City. I've been seeing a lot of things, really. Come on, guys, let's do something, on west side of Salt Lake City.
Thank you.
Next is Christopher Butler, followed by Jay Larson, and then Roger Miller. Christopher, you may now unmute.
Alrighty. Got a lot to say, so I might be talking a little fast, but I'm here to comment on the humongous police budget. We're spending over $110 million, or almost 1/4 of the general fund, on a department that multiple researches and things have shown to be ineffective. I was recently just rewatching the work session where they were talking about some of the treatment plans and how the numbers of violent crimes, and in the numbers they were showing, there wasn't, the treatment plan that we're putting money towards and everything isn't that effective compared to the seasonal changes in crime from even the previous year. And it's just all sorts of stuff where we're throwing all this money at the police, and it's not really helping crime. We're policing these hotspots, which feels like it's just going to end up with more officers going towards people who are poor or people of color, so they're going to get unfairly treated, which is not what we should be doing. We should be spending this money on things that are proven to actually prevent crime and stop crime at the source, so that way people don't need to revert to crime or feel like they need to. And then I do like that we're sending, citizens, or not really police, towards certain things, but that needs to be completely removed from the police budget and from the police department as a whole, because the things they're responding to, they're still in so much contact with police, and those are the types of things that police clearly cannot respond to, properly, as 40% of police-involved shootings of the past 10 years were involved in mental health crises, which we don't want police, shooting more people because they already shoot enough. And I'm out of time.
Thank you.
And next will be Jay Larson, followed by Roger Miller, and then Casina Kanasiva. Jay is here in person.
So I have to turn this way to see how much time I have. I came here with the idea of presenting a proposal about an ordinance that was passed up in Spokane, but I went and left my elevator speech in my briefcase, didn't make it in the folder. So I believe I want to share some comments about why I did not pledge allegiance to the flag. It has nothing to do with the United States. I and many of my friends have the belief that the flag has flown over too many massacres and represents too many treaties that we've reneged on, or those kinds of things. I wish we could create a pledge of allegiance to some kind of, to humanity and diversity. I'd be more than glad to pledge allegiance to that, but pledge allegiance to a flag of the United States of America. Oh, I might as well say that I learned years ago that we seem to take ownership of the word America, but we need to understand that South American people are Americans and Canadians are Americans, but we seem to, just really quickly though, diversity, oh, I lost my train of thought. Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Next will be Roger Miller, followed by Casina Kanasiva, and then Christina Robb. Roger is here in person.
Hello, I am Rod Miller of Poplar Grove it's a repeat comment on finance of city projects. I wish projects to be responsibly, efficiently, and most importantly, cost-effectively done. The Other Side Village as proposed is financially irresponsible. The reported estimates of tiny house cost was an extravagant $90,000 to $162,000 per unit. This cost estimate did not include, according to one report, the cost of land, which I assume to mean the cost of landfill, environmentally concerned too, needed to negate water collection in the lowland area designated for the village. Seasonally, the area is a mud bog and pond. The action of making such an area suitable for dwelling would be prohibitively expensive, and there's still a pond there now. The Austin, Texas Community First Village of Tiny Homes is often mentioned as a model for the Salt Lake community. The Austin community has no plumbing or stove cooking facilities in each tiny house. Shower and all bathroom facilities, as well as major cooking facilities, are shared in a central area outside the individual house. The Salt Lake Tiny House Village expense includes the cost of plumbing, shower, toilet, sink, etc. in each house. Follow the Austin Community First Village lead, and no plumbing related features in each individual tiny house. Be fiscally responsible. Shared water resources needed for stove cooking and cleanup engender the sense of community touted by both the Other Side Village and the Austin Community First programs. On a personal note, I've built a sturdy tiny house with metal roof, 5 windows, a door, cabinet, and wood stove for a fraction of the cost of the Other Side Village homes. You have said the Other Side Village is a done deal. You are wrong.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Just beginning. Be responsible fiscally and turn the 40-acre parcel into a solar farm. Thank you.
Next will be Ksenia Kanasiva, followed by Christina Robb, and then Evan Sugden. Ksenia, you may now unmute.
Thank you so much. Ksenia Kanasiva with the Nomad Alliance. What is staggering to me that we are going to spend 11 times the affordable housing allotment of this budget on the police. $10 million for affordable housing when the mayor, the city council, everyone agrees that the homeless epidemic is the biggest crisis of our time. It's not crime. Mayor Mendenhall insists that crime has gone down, but why is police budget going up? Additionally, Megan Moan was killed by the police. A coroner ruled her death homicide when 3 cops kneeled on her. She was homeless for a day and a half. What she needed was affordable housing. It was not extra policing. When affordable housing units are built in communities, crime goes down. And people will steal when they don't have enough to eat. We had a whole movie about that, Jean Valjean and the bread. Look, what people need is a safe place to go. Otherwise, they will do whatever they can to survive. It's our innermost need is to make sure that we can survive until tomorrow, and people will do anything when they are that desperate. And right now, nobody can afford. Studies show that 70% of Utahns are priced out of the house of buying a home, and there is not one city in the state of Utah where someone making minimum wage can afford a 1-bedroom apartment, much less a 2-bedroom for a family. It's untenable, and we beg you, please, if you want to reduce the homeless epidemic, if you want to boost the economy of downtown with businesses leaving because people are pooping outside, we need more affordable housing. We do not need extra police. Thank you very much.
Next will be Christina Robb, followed by Evan Sugden, and then Judy Short. Christina's here in person.
Hi, I'm Christina Robb again, and I am representing the voices of the Elko constituents. We have had one budget comment, and it happens to be about alleyways. As you probably know, we're being sandwiched right now between road construction on 11 East and 900 South. So alleyways are becoming a major need because the parking is being reduced due to the road. So this is a good time to talk about alleyways. We've been working really closely with the Salt Lake City Engineering Department and the Mayor's Office to try and be creative and figure out ways to solve the pothole/swimming pool issues that are happening in alleyways as a result of the long winter. To this end, we have gotten a script from engineering that says, hello and thank you for your inquiry about the conditions of Salt Lake City's alleyways. Currently, there is no formal funded alley maintenance program, though we have reconstructed pavement on 2 pilot alleyway locations. This goes on to discuss the 100 miles of alley citywide, whether they're public or private, and talk about the pilot program for alley reconstruction. But Elko constituents just want you to know that this is wonderful. They support it, but some of the alleyways are so damaged that the streets crews cannot fix them with regular asphalt pothole fillings. So if you could consider just letting the people know how maybe those kind of issues could be solved through this, in this budget season, that would be really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next will be Evan Sugden, followed by Judy Short, and then Jack Ellison. Evan is here in person.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My topic today is the mayor's proposed budget item, including incentives for e-bike purchases. First off, I'd like to say I support that proposal, but I have an ask to go along with it, and it has to do with bicycle security. Anyone who owns an e-bike knows that security is a primary issue when you purchase an e-bike. The threat of theft hangs above your head constantly. It determines where you go, how far you go, where you park your bike, or even if you use your e-bike at all. To encourage more e-bikes, which I presume is part of the impetus for this proposal, without also including a measure for security, is kind of crazy. So I would like to ask that the council consider, or the appropriate authorities consider, allocating a small proportion of that allotment towards bicycle security through the funding via seed money for the construction of an exemplary bicycle parking facility. Now, I serve on the board of directors for Wasatch Cooperative Market, which recently acquired a storefront property along Harvey Milk Boulevard, and we may have property that could be used for such a purpose. It would depend on the owner's approval and so forth, but there's a discussion to be had, and I would like to request at least 1% of that allocation be dedicated to bicycle security in a way that it could be replicated, if successful, throughout the city as time goes by. So that is my spiel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next will be Judy Short, followed by Jack Ellison. Judy's here in person.
Good evening, Judy Short. Salt Lake has spent an inordinate amount of time this year working on housing issues and revising or writing new ordinances. Thriving in Place is the one that has caught my attention. Housing is the biggest problem the city has. We don't want people to move out of our city because they can't afford to live here. And yet we keep displacing people. The first priority on Salt Lake's anti-displacement strategy is to develop a tenant relocation assistance program. But we have no places to tell them about. I can't find anything in the budget that indicates this has any funding. The only thing I can find is $11 million in the RDA budget for housing investments. That money will build 45 apartment units, not buildings, units, at today's prices of $200,000 to $300,000 per unit. The incentives ordinance probably won't result in many units being built. How on earth can you even think about starting a tenant relocation assistance program when there's no place for them to go? I ask you to go over the budget again and come up with money for affordable housing somewhere. And coddle up to those partners you keep talking about. And get serious about getting some money out of each and every one of them. And write an ordinance that says no apartment building can be built that doesn't have 20% affordable units in it. And do that as a development agreement so they can't change their mind because their costs went up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next is Jack Ellison, who is here in person.
I'd like to address the problem of a street that's not been finished for maybe it's going on 50 years. Many city administrations have been told about this, given photographs. So I didn't bring any photographs this time because it would be the same thing as the past photographs, so nothing's changed. Has a storm sewer problem because of the grade. They have a low grade at the intersection of 7th North and Riverside Drive. It's a fairly busy intersection. School across the street from this intersection. A lot of school children have to traverse this intersection in inclement weather when there's mud puddles, ice, and or just mud. Standing water, they walk in the middle of the road or up on the dry part, the pavement. But the sides of the asphalt have never been completed because the curb and gutter's not there. And one side does have a sidewalk on one side, but the other side is just mud. I've talked to mayors, I've talked to council members, I've talked to people in the streets department. It's always a budget. Of course, I know I live in a ghetto, so I accept that fact. I've lived in a ghetto all my life, and I'm not complaining about the ghetto. I learned a lot of things living that way, how to make do with less. But we'd like to have that street fixed before some kid gets hit by a car. And I thought maybe I'd just come down and make an announcement and let you know that we still would like to have it done on the card that I submitted.
Thank you.
That was the final registered commenter.
Is there anyone here in person that would like to speak to the budget items? Okay, please come to the microphone and state your name for the record. Could you speak a little bit louder?
I would like to make a comment on what she had to say about affordable housing. So I live in affordable housing, and the affordable housings, when they build it, are not insulated at all. And so we have to apply for heat to pay for our bills. Well, that's wasting money because heat will be used for something else if the apartments or whatever is being built for low income were actually insulated. And so when you give these people tax breaks for building homes that are affordable, make them insulate them and stop using the money for heat and use it for something.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the items to a future date for action.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Puya, second from Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. So we flip some pages here, and we are on section H, which is potential action items. Section H, item H1 is an ordinance regarding the early notification text amendment. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Dugan, second from Councilmember Puy. Do I have any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. We are now on item H2, which is an ordinance regarding the downtown building heights and street activation text amendment. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance, and I further move that the council adopt a legislative action initiating a petition to study bird-friendly glass and provide recommendations to the council on best practices for its use.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Puy, a second from Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion to this item?
Yes.
Yes,
Mr.
Councilmember Puy.
I just want to recognize that this legislative action is a fruit from the perseverance of Councilmember Dugan, and I'm looking forward to learn more about bear-friendly glass.
I'm also looking forward to learning about bird-friendly glass.
Nice.
Any more discussion to this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0. That brings us to item H3, which is an ordinance regarding budget amendment number 6 for fiscal year 2022 through 2023. I will look for a motion.
So move.
Second. I don't see it.
Move to adopt.
I think there's.
Second.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Oh.
There are two motions on the motion sheet.
We don't have a motion sheet.
We don't have the motion sheet, so.
We don't have a motion sheet for that.
No, we don't.
I think I found it.
Number one, option number one adopts the whole budget amendment except the perpetual housing, and then you would do motion number 2 in addition if you want to adopt the perpetual housing tonight. If not, it will go on next week.
I have it now. I have it from online.
Councilmember Dugan.
You have it?
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing documents, only for the items as shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Dugan, a second from Councilmember Pui. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing documents for item A15 as shown on the motion sheet. And I further move that the funding for item A15 is a contingent appropriation subject to council approval of a term sheet, and the adoption ordinance shall be updated to reflect this condition.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay.
I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay, that passes 5-0. We are on the general comment or the comment section of our agenda. The first item is I-1, which is questions for the mayor. Council members, are there any questions for the mayor? Thank you for being here and for working with us through this budget process. The next item is I-2, which is comments to the city council from the public. So this is our general comment portion of the agenda. As a reminder, anyone joining via Zoom, please work with Itzak Canedo, spelled I-S-A-A-C, from the list to with any questions about your registration. Taylor Hill is going to be moderating this comment period as well. After 2 minutes, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via mail or email or call our office. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks like there are 5 people registered for general comment. The first will be Steve Lemon, followed by Steve Ferguson, and then Christopher Butler. Steve Lemon, you may now unmute.
Peace Gardens International Academy. My AI will take it from here.
Once upon a time, in the magical realm of Salt Lake City, a group of concerned citizens sent a heartfelt recommendation to their beloved mayor. This recommendation centered around the reinstallation of a precious statue, none other than the enchanting Little Mermaid, within the revered Peace Gardens. The citizens' hearts were heavy with worry, for they had noticed the poor condition of the statue. Despite having been temporarily removed for restoration, it seemed that her tail was still in great peril. It teetered on the edge of detaching completely, threatening the Little Mermaid's very essence. Curiosity tugged at their thoughts, and they pondered who had permitted such a shoddy installation. They wondered if the gatekeepers of the mayor had shielded her from their recommendation, for it had been weeks since their plea, and no action had been taken to ensure the Little Mermaid's safety. The Little Mermaid had been among the staunchest citizens of Salt Lake, greeting locals and tourists alike from her boulder perch at the Danish Garden. She fondly remembered the year the Peace Gardens ranked as Utah's #1 Visit America site under President Eisenhower. Her supporters felt she deserved more than just the keys to the city. They envisioned a dedicated security detail for the mermaid equipped with magical chips and sensors, powered by the wonders of modern technology. Having been abducted and mutilated several times, they felt she deserved a life of careful conservation, ensuring that she could fulfill her duties without fear or distraction. Oh, how they wished their heartfelt recommendation would reach the mayor's ears, and that she would embrace their concerns with open arms. The citizens yearned for the Little Mermaid to be rescued from her precarious state, allowing her to once again grace the Peace Gardens with her timeless beauty. In this magical tale, the citizens' voices echoed through the city, their hopes and dreams intertwining with the fate of the Little Mermaid and the mayor. The citizens refused to give up, believing that their plea would one day be heard, and the enchanting Peace Gardens would once again shine with joy and tranquility.
Thank you. That's time.
And next will be Christopher Butler, followed by Kisina Kanasiba, and then Cindy Cromer. Christopher, you may now unmute.
All right, so just wanted to add in from my earlier comments, but I saw that the mayor had tweeted not long ago about it being the anniversary of George Floyd's death. And I just think that if the mayor and the city of Salt Lake are serious about, taking what happened with him seriously and actually fighting for changes so something like that doesn't happen again, we can't just keep throwing money at the police because that's who is responsible for that atrocity. That's who are responsible for so many. And if we want to be leaders in working to solve these problems, the police are not the answer. And that we need to not just stop throwing money at them, but start moving money towards meaningful things to help people. Thank you.
And next will be Kisina Kanasiba, followed by Cindy Cromer. Kisina, you may now unmute.
I apologize. I didn't mean to sign up for so many comments. Just want to say, in line with the previous comment about George Floyd and Mayor Mendenhall's tweet, Megan Moan is our George Floyd. It is our city's shame. And there was a front page article on the Tribune with 2 inside pages all about how heinous that crime was. The police removed audio from body cam footage where Megan begged for help from a new policeman that showed up. And the policeman said, "We're not here to help." What happened to protect and serve? Also, please sanction campgrounds, Santa Cruz coding stage changes. Please, we invite you to come and chat with our nomads at our next supply drive, second Sunday of July. And thank you so much for your hard work. I appreciate you. And please do something. And that's not the police. Thank you.
And next will be Cindy Cromer, who is here in person.
I had planned to talk tonight about the first proposals reaching the Planning Commission's agenda regarding the modifications to the RMF 30 zone. But then there was another fire in Central City. I will circle back to those RMF 30 modifications. First, I need to thank the employees of Salt Lake City's fire department for their efforts last weekend in the fire on 200 East. Once again, they saved lives and property, including the occupied apartment building known as the Randy. As a result of the fire on 2nd East last weekend, I'm going to focus on the unintended consequences of zero setback. The Randy has a zero setback for its podium base, but there's approximately a 10-foot step back for the residential levels. Because the windows next to the fire are now boarded, I anticipate that the damage would have been much worse without that step back. The risk of fire spreading is one of the many unanticipated consequences of zero setback. Secondly, because the city's ordinances offer no protection for access to air and sunlight, new buildings with zero setback can reduce or even eliminate air circulation and sunlight, depending on their location relative to existing buildings. Of course, the new buildings are also blocking views that the residents and employees may have been enjoying for more than a century. Third, a zero setback assumes that the abutting property owners are willing to cooperate during the construction and subsequently for maintenance. It is not possible to build and maintain the exterior of a building built to the property line without trespassing or cooperating. And the city has created an ordinance which makes it a third party in these discussions. Fourth, the crowding which occurs devalues the buildings, losing light, air, and views, and also enhances the light, air, and views of the newer buildings at the expense of the existing ones. I'll send you pictures of how this looks. The owners of the existing buildings are stuck with a parcel too small to redevelop and get the booby prize of having a building which enhances the air, light, and views of some other property owner's building. Thank you.
That was the final registered commenter.
Thank you. Anyone that has not commented that would like to? Okay, seeing none. We don't need a motion to close general comment, right? No? Okay. So that concludes general comment. We have no new business and no unfinished business. So that brings us to the consent agenda. I will first look for a motion on items L1 through L8 only, because I need to recuse myself for the last item.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda items L1 through L8.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui and a second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That passes 5-0, and I am recused from the last item. So I will see you later.
All right. Now that he's gone. All right. I will now look for a motion on item L9.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda item L9.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 4-0 with Mono, Fowler, and Wharton absent. Let's bring them back.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting. So thank you for joining us, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take away all the regulations. What do you get? Freedom? No. Our heroes in blue, protecting your freedom. More at slcpd.com.
At the outset of World War I, it was apparent that everyone in the United States would be needed to take part in the war effort both directly and indirectly. The U.S. worked diligently to recruit more than 25,000 nurses to work in the war hospitals both at home and abroad by the end of 1917. At the beginning of the war, Utah had only 450 trained nurses in the entire state, but that didn't stop those women from enlisting to help. 80 registered female nurses from Utah served in the war, whether that was in trauma hospitals, at the front, or elsewhere. One of the most prominent World War I nurses was Anna Rosenkilde. She served in France with the Army Nurse Corps and in 1922 became the first nurse hired by the new primary